If I had to pick my favorite thing about this course, it'd definitely be the soundtrack. The music is so tight that it's basically a meme at this point. That's why it's so unfortunate that this is probably the track that's most likely to make you want to cry tears of sadness from trying to learn how to play it. Welcome to part 10 of Basic Training, where we're going to cover everything you need to know about Dolphin Shoals on 150cc. As always, we're going to cover the recommended builds, mushroom strats, coin lines, and other advanced tips and tricks to help you start mastering the course. This is usually the point where I start talking about alternate strategies, but this video is actually going to be put together a little bit differently than my other videos, and that's because this might actually be one of the most difficult tracks to optimize in the entire game. So what I'm going to do is break this tutorial into 3 sections of increasing difficulty. The first level will be made up of techniques that I think most people should be able to get a handle on with just a little bit of practice, and won't include any advanced strategies like soft drifting or counter hopping or vectoring or any of that. We're going to build on these strats in level 2 of the tutorial, which will include techniques that I use in my current personal best. And then we're going to finish it up by discussing the world record strategies in level 3. The point of organizing the video in this way is to make the tutorial a bit more friendly to those of you who aren't super comfortable with things like soft drifting and glider vectoring, so that you can still improve by using a version of the run that's more in line with your skill level. I'm kind of experimenting here, so let me know down in the comments if you like this style of tutorial or if you prefer the older style where I just go over the advanced strats directly. With all that out of the way, let's grab our snorkels and wade into the tranquil waters of Dolphin Shoals. The recommended build for this course is going to be our usual try-hard build of Waluigi. Wait a minute, what do you know? It's not the Waluigi build that you're so used to seeing at this point. Dolphin Shoals is going to make use of a pretty unique build in Rosalina, Streetle, Rollers, and Paper Glider. But you guys know I love my Waluigi builds and I can't go for one video without talking about them, so let's talk about why we're not using that build for this course. Comparing the stats for these two builds, we can see that the Rosalina build absolutely dominates in underwater speed. And if you somehow weren't already aware of this fact, there's a little bit of water in this course. But it's also got crazy high off-road traction, which is going to be really useful for taking turns properly in this track, since pretty much the whole course is on sand. Now, even though it's got better underwater speed and grip, every other stat is lower, meaning that the Rosalina build is really good for this course and basically nothing else. With all that out of the way, let's check out the track. Kicking things off for the level 1 version of the run, we start by building a mini turbo around this first turn. Once we release, head straight toward the ramp and grab the 2 coins before tricking off the third arrow from the left. The goal here is to land more or less in front of the 3 coins so that when you land, you can start a drift and grab them while building up a super mini turbo. Now once we get into the giant cave section here, there's actually a lot of potential paths that we can take, but the fastest is to go off the pipe on the far right hand side of the track. You can actually trick off these little jets of water coming out of the pipe, so go ahead and do that. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is the water physics. While you're floating in the water, meaning you're not actually on the track, you have a lot of freedom to move around. So if you start holding up on the joystick, for example, your cart will start angling down, and you'll get back to the track more quickly. On the other hand, if you hold down on the joystick, your cart will stay afloat longer. So what you want to do here is trick off the jet of water and try to use water physics to land back on the track as soon as you can by holding up on the joystick. This is because your speed while floating in the water is abysmal, and the more time you spend with your cart on the ground, the better. Once you land, get ready to grab the 2 coins right after the first orange boost ramp. This upcoming strategy, while not super difficult to execute, can be a bit tricky to learn. Basically what you want to do is stay on the right hand side of the second orange boost ramp, and then after tricking off of it, try and angle yourself such that you land on the next orange boost pad before the next 3 pipes. The reason I say it's a bit tricky is because the goal here is to not take any of the track down below. So you need to use water physics to basically cut off that whole portion of the track and land on top of the orange boost ramp. The problem is the water physics are kinda wonky, and a couple of things can go wrong here. The first thing that can happen is that you don't go far enough and then you land in the off-road like I do here. The second, and perhaps more frustrating thing that can go wrong here is that you actually land too far up on the orange boost ramp. This is bad because what often ends up happening is that you kind of land in between the boost ramp and the pipes, and this causes your cart to get flung way up and straight into the wall. Once you know that you need to avoid that situation though, it's really not that hard to do. Okay, so we've probably come up on the most annoying strategy in the entire track. This is because if you screw it up, it's going to cost you a ton of time, and whether or not you screw it up can often feel like it depends on the alignment of the planets. But fear not, fellow racers, because I'm going to break this down for you in a pretty straightforward way. After getting to the orange boost ramp, we're going to go over another set of pipes. You want to trick off the water stream coming out of the rightmost pipe, and then hold down on the joystick so that you can float up to the top of the eel. Now the thing about this eel is that you can actually trick off of its spine, and if you land back on top of the eel, you can keep tricking over and over again. If you get good enough at this, you can get 4, 5, even 6 tricks off his back, and this will more or less keep you in trick boost speed throughout the entire eel section, which is going to save a ridiculous amount of time. That being said, it's really difficult to do this properly, and once you've gotten everything else down, this is the section of the track that's most likely to destroy your run. But I'm going to teach you an easy strategy that you can use to consistently get at least 3 tricks off of his back. So once you've gotten on top of the eel, the first thing you need to do is straighten yourself out. And once the eel's spine gets under your cart, you do your first trick. You'll probably notice that the eel's body is undulating back and forth, and you might think to yourself, hey, maybe I can follow his spine to get a bunch of tricks here. Now it turns out that ultimately that's what we're going to want to try and do, but if you're first learning this track, do not try and move with his spine. This is really important because if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to fall off and it's going to take an insane amount of time for you to get back on the ground and start driving again. So all you need to do after your first trick is nothing. You just keep on going straight, and eventually the eel's back will make its way under your cart again, at which point you can get your second trick. Keep on doing nothing, and you should be able to get at least 3 tricks off the eel's back every single lap. Now it's definitely not the fastest way to get through this section, but in my opinion, it's probably the most consistent. One final thing to mention about this section is that ideally you should have 10 coins by the time you're off of the eel. 2 from right before the middle ramp, 3 from the first wide turn, 2 more from the upper portion of the cave with the orange boost ramps, and 3 from the eel. If you're not able to get the 3 from the eel, like I wasn't here, don't worry because the rest of the lap is pretty straightforward and you should be able to snag a couple more coins before the lap is over. So after coming off the eel, drift around this turn, grab the coin if you need it, and build up an Ultra Mini Turbo. Release, trick off both the ramps, and then trick off the glider. Once again, grab the coin up here if you need it, and then before you land, start holding down the drift button and left on the joystick so that when you land, you'll immediately start drifting. Build up a Mini Turbo, and then just mushroom through the off-road to finish up the lap. Laps 2 and 3 are pretty similar, with the only real difference being that instead of tricking off the middle ramp, you go to the left of it to take a super tight line around this turn here. Okay, so that's it for level 1 of the tutorial. Let's take a look at how all of this is put together in a full run. Now let's build on what we learned in the level 1 version of the tutorial and talk about some advanced strategies we can use to help us further improve our times. The first difference in strategy is that after going off the first ramp in lap 1, what you can do is actually start holding down the drift button in midair. And then immediately before landing, start holding left on the joystick so that you can start a left drift without getting too much movement prior to landing. Then you want to soft drift around the bend to build up an ultra mini turbo instead of a super mini turbo. It turns out that on lap 2, we actually still do want to trick off this ramp. But rather than going up the entire thing, we're going to actually try and trick off the left edge of the ramp, which will allow us to still get a trick while minimizing vertical movement. The next strategy involves the tricks into and out of the cave section. Similar to Sunshine Airport, we actually want to do a directional trick. In particular, the direction we want to be holding while doing the trick is up. This results in a so-called up trick. We want to do this for a couple of reasons. First, up tricks have this property where they delay the trick boost until after the trick animation is done. Really, that's true for any directional trick, but the delay is greatest for up tricks and down tricks. This is important because when entering the cave, you'll be in the middle of your Ultra Mini Turbo boost. And when exiting the cave, you'll have a boost from the orange boost ramp. The delay that you get from the up trick helps ensure that your trick boosts don't start until your other boosts have already run out, which maximizes your time spent boosting. The other reason for doing an up trick specifically is for water physics maneuvering. The next strategy is how you approach the eel tricks. In the level 1 version of these strats, I mentioned how if you just keep going straight and trick whenever the spine goes underneath your cart, you're more or less guaranteed to get at least 3 tricks every time. In order to get more, you must pay attention to the position of your cart and the eel's spine, as well as how the spine is moving relative to your cart. The basic idea is that you always want to be positioned in such a way that the eel's spine is moving towards you, and then you want to move to the other side of the spine when it's about to start curving in the opposite direction. You can see how much the eel can impact a run if you compare laps 1 and 2 of my current PB. The last set of strats that I use in my current PB starts with the glider. Rather than trick off the 2 ramps and then tricking off the glider like before, what we want to do is trick off the second ramp and then land in a left drift and soft drift off the glider. Do not let go of the soft drifting angle, and this should allow you to build up a mini turbo, which will get released automatically after coming off the glider. Then, holding a down and right angle like a 4 or 5 on the clock face will allow us to take advantage of glider vectoring. We still want to land from the glider in a left drift like before, but this time you want to keep the drift and then use a mushroom to cut the off-road on the left-hand side of the track. As soon as you build up your mini turbo, you want to release it. If done correctly, this will give you just a little bit of airtime, which will allow you to readjust the direction of your cart so that you can build up another mini turbo while still going more or less straight up the track. The shroomless variation of this turn is more or less exactly the same as the version of the turn with mushrooms. Now let's take a look at lap 2 from both the level 1 version of the run and from my current PB so that we can see how beneficial all these strats can actually be. In particular, pay attention to how much farther ahead my PB is when entering the upper cave section and when exiting the eel section. Now before we close the video out, I'm going to quickly cover the world record strats. First up, on every lap they build up a super mini turbo around the first turn and then trick off both ramps instead of just the one. This is ridiculously precise though, and I was not good enough to find a way to save time with these strats. The only other major difference aside from just generally cleaner driving is that for the glider section, they do some crazy motion glider strategies that definitely do save a lot of time, but are really difficult to pull off properly. And that's everything you need to know about Dolphin Shoals on 150cc. Like I said, this course is ridiculously hard to optimize, so if you don't get it right away, don't feel bad. My PB is more than 8 seconds behind record, and even the 10th place runner worldwide is more than a second and a half off a record, so needless to say, it's going to take some time to learn how to play this course properly. All that being said though, I hope that you found this video useful, and if you did, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to do some basic training, and as always, I will see you in the next one.